to probably, we are going to probably bombard you. I know one young woman last year who put out a reel. She was graduating. She put out a reel, and I kid you not, 60 people between recruiters, news directors, executive producers, all reached out to her. 60. She was so overwhelmed she didn't know what to do with herself. But that's going to happen right now if you have talent and you show it.
Perfect. So, hey, Mike Bothwell, why don't you weigh in on this?
Could not agree more with Stephanie. It is a different environment, even in the last 5 years or so. As Mike and I were kind of talking about a little earlier this week, a lot of us have been in this industry for a long time, and I feel like I've seen more change in the past few years than I have in the first 25 years of my career. Truly, to Stephanie's point, the way we look for people now is 100% different. I personally am on LinkedIn constantly. I absolutely love it on there. Yes, you will absolutely see everybody's reel and everyone will see your reel. But I find on there that the open to work little banner that you have on your picture, if you are looking, is absolutely helpful. But even if you don't have that on there and you put a reel out there just to kind of put the feelers out there, you can bet that myself or somebody on our team is going to reach out to you if you have talent. Because what we try and do is, if you're not up for 6 or 8 months, that link that Joyce put up there in the chat, if you sign up for that, that's going to put you in our system, and then we will track you and say, oh, Ashley's agreement's up in 9 months from now. Let's reach out to her in 6 months and see where she's at. So we really try and make sure that we get out in front, because the competition is so stiff, and because the pool of candidates has shrunk so much. We have to be much more aggressive. I think we all, as a group, groups are looking at folks that are earlier in their careers for larger jobs than we would have even 4 or 5 years ago. But I think that's just a function of the industry. For Spectrum News, we are very, very big on storytellers. That's what we kind of hang our hats on, is looking for people that are storytellers. That's very difficult to teach. We feel like we can teach almost everything else, but if you're a good journalist and a good storyteller, that's those folks tend to rise to the top for us when we're looking. But YouTube is a huge one. We're on there every single day. The entire team is on there every single day. And we do a lot of just direct cold outreach as well. We really do. Obviously, we use TalentBlvd every day. We use Talent Dynamics. We don't use agents as much as we used to, just because it's much easier for us to connect directly with a lot of folks just on their social media and start that conversation right away. But in general, we have to be as aggressive as possible, because every other company out there is going to do the same thing.
Yep. Perfect. Little commercial for Spectrum there too in the chat. I like that.
Thank you.
So Ashley, before we get to the news directors, you want to weigh in on where you're looking and finding reels today?
100%. I echo what everyone else has mentioned and what you said. You've got to be on YouTube. You've got to be on LinkedIn. And of course, your platform, TalentBlvd, is a place where I hear all of our news directors and general managers say they're looking for talent. So those are all really good places. But it's not enough to just be there. You have to be there in a user-friendly way. So if your reel is not titled MMJ reel or reporter reel, if it's something obscure like your name and a date, we're never going to find it. If your LinkedIn profile isn't updated with your most recent talent or title, and maybe in your summary what you're looking for next, what your goals are, it's going to be a missed opportunity. So it's not enough to be there. You have to also really make sure you're using it to your advantage.
Perfect. Let's move over to the news directors now. So Jess, what are you looking for in terms of slates, or how should a reel start? What's the right way to start a reel today?
I don't think there's a right or wrong way. Like Stephanie says, you have to be noticed, right? So back in the day, when everybody was talking about Mike and everybody was talking about, how we find and view reels has changed. and it used to be you'd get 100 for, so you'd have to, I mean, in the first 3 seconds, you know, this is back in the day when I submitted my reel and it had to be on a VHS tape and you slide it in. And if it's not something in the first 3 minutes, you hit the eject button, move on to the next one. This is something where I don't know how everybody else does it, but I basically have a playlist. I search the word MMJ or whatever I'm looking for, and anything that comes up, and I hit play on YouTube, and it's just going in the background while I'm doing my work. So when I hear something, whether somebody's voice is awesome, or if I see something, if I'm, you know, multitasking, I might look over every once in a while. So if you've got great video, if you've got great presentation, etc., or I like your writing, because I'm obviously hearing, you know, what you're saying, something that stands out. So I like how non-specific Stephanie was about that, because she didn't say how you stand out, because it truly is finding what is uniquely you, why I should hire you over anyone else. Because even though, like I said, everything has changed since everybody's mailing in their old VHS tapes or DVDs, you are still in competition with other people. There will at least be one other person who is looking for that job and who you need to stand out against. So the slate is helpful, but there's so many other ways. Like if it's in the description in your YouTube page, if it's, I mean, as long as there is a way for me to contact you, please do not worry about the details of, you know, well, it has to be in this font, or it has to be centered, or it has to have your picture or your. What I don't like is if there's not a way for me to email you, because emailing you is the first thing that I will do, to say, hey, I saw your reel, just wanted to start a chat, send me a couple of windows of time when you might be available. And if there's only a phone number or your Instagram handle or something, that's not very easy for me to do that. And I very rarely cold call people, because you know how everyone these days is allergic to the telephone and they don't answer it even when someone they know is calling. So they're certainly not going to answer if I'm calling and they don't know my number. And so I like to arrange that. So usually that should be an email address. So as long as it's something somewhere where I find where I can contact you via email. I also like, though I don't need you to provide like a LinkedIn link or QR code, because that is, as everyone has mentioned, the first place I go to try to connect with people just randomly, you know, just like, obviously, if you have applied, I'll email you, or if you're sending me your reel. But if I'm looking for you, I will seek you out on LinkedIn, see where, you know, see if they, because if I'm just coming across your reel on YouTube, like Stephanie was talking about, I don't know where you've been before, other than what I can see in your reel. So I may go to your LinkedIn to sort of see a resume. And so make yourself findable, as well as Ashley was talking about the usability of it, the user-friendly. Make yourself findable. If there's 100 Bob Joneses and your name is also Bob Jones, make sure that you know, you have in the description where you work, so I can find the Bob Jones who works at X TV station currently, because otherwise it will be very difficult for us to connect until I can find a different way to contact you.
Louder for the people in back, Jess. It's so hard to find some people with a common name. Yeah. It's crazy. Hey, Dana, I want to move over to you now. You've been in this industry for a while. You got a great reputation. Where are you looking for reels? Where are you finding reels? How would you like the reel to start? What's a good slate in beginning for you?
If I can start my response with another subject real quickly for the younger folks here, please know the difference between LinkedIn and Facebook, and don't use them interchangeably. Now I'll go to your question, Mike, and thank you for I am astonished by how few resumes I see or get that do not include a link to a reel. And so the reality is then the applicant, and many of these are cold applicants, right? They're just reaching out of nowhere to me, which is fine. They expect me to search for them. That's not a real safe game plan. And then I want you to ask yourself, what might I find when I do that? For sure, I'm going to find things that are not your reel. I am not implying that you have anything on there that you don't want me to see, but I will not just and only or first find what you do want me to see. So do yourself a favor and make that link very readily available and obvious. When I do get a reel or when I do find a reel, I am also often surprised by what I perceive that the reel was produced for your grandmother, not for a potential boss. Here I am in this outfit I love. Here I am on a good hair day. Here I am, don't I look good here? Here I am on a bike, on a camel, on a race car, whatever I'm on. And I'm sure your grandmothers love those. I don't need to see a montage that goes much beyond 60 seconds. In 60 seconds, I get a sense for who you are, what you sound like, and how you move. Then I want to see how you tell a story. Get to the packages.
Perfect.
There.
There's a question that just came up in the chat that now's probably a good time to address it from Deidre. She was, is it okay to send news directors an email with our resume reel links, or do you prefer a candidate submit an application online first? Or does it matter at all? Jess? Oh.
I would love to answer this question. You do have to apply for the job. Please be on all the platforms that Mike and everybody were talking about, but do know and be responsive, because whether it's, I work for Gray, so whether you're in the Gray talent pool, whether I find you on Talent Boulevard or found your reel somewhere, be responsive, because the next step, it's not like I can't talk to you unless you've applied for the job. But if you email me your resume, or if you how interested are you if you didn't even take the time to apply for the job? So you apply for the job. I know you want the job. As far as knowing whether the position is still available, I don't know about everybody else, but I'm on top of those postings, because that's pretty much what I spend a lot of my time doing, even though I'm not a recruiter, is making sure that everything, so that I can do a better job of filling the roles quickly and as we need them to be filled. There is no job, I'm only speaking for myself here, there is no job for my station that is, for my news department, that is posted that is not available or open. Now, we may be a certain amount of, down the road with a certain candidate, and so you may be applying when we're already, flying out our top candidate or whatever, and there's no way for me to communicate that to you. So, if it's posted, it is available, you should apply for it. Because, like I say, you will need to do that. We can't go any farther other than like a call or a Zoom call unless you have applied. So please, please, please do apply. And in my case, assume that posted jobs are available.
Yep. So what I coach, and these news directors and recruiters may shoot me down on this, but I do know that your next job is 97% most likely to come out of your network and not a blind application. I encourage you to reach out to a hiring manager in the form of an email or a LinkedIn message. Let them know who you are, what your core competencies are, 2 things about you that stand out. Let them know you're going to apply online, and then a day or 2 later follow up and say, hey, I sent you a message, I applied online, look for me. I want to go back and tell you what my 2 competencies are and why I stand out.
Mike, if I could add one thing to Deirdre's question was, please, if you do email us, which we love, I guess it's really 2 things. Number 1, do not email us to ask what openings we have, because you're a journalist. If you can't find out what openings I have, how are you going to uncover the stories? And number 2, and because then you can show that you have seen the website. You may ask, is so-and-so such and such still open? Because maybe not everybody is as on top of their postings as mine. But then the other thing is, when you email us, please don't email us 42 times. Hello, I was just writing to see if you have received my previous email. Did you have my resume, and have you hired for this position yet? Not a bunch, but you can certainly reach out to us. Please do.
Yep. Rule of thumb in my game is that you can only reach out if you have some kind of new news. Don't reach out and follow up and say, hi, how are you? Where am I? What's going on? If there's something new, that's a great opportunity to follow up. I have a new reel. Here's my resume. Something that the news director or hiring manager hasn't seen before and is news to them and is newsworthy. Grace, you have a question, Grace?
Hi, yes. I'm in the earliest stages of creating my reel, which is why my professor suggested I join this. Ashley came and spoke in one of my classes not too long ago. Right now, I produce like a global news segment daily for my internship, and then I also have a bilingual Spanish news segment I do every weekend. But they have the same background, the same green screen, and I'm just wondering if, although those are the most professional, most AP news based, hard news stories and material that I have, would it be better for me to include some other projects I've worked on that aren't AP news based, just to have some variety? Like, is that a turnoff in terms of looking at the reel if it's like, a little bit too much of the same background or same format?
One of the news directors want to weigh in on that? Aaron or Dana? Ashley, since you met Grace in class, can you answer Grace's question?
I'd be happy to. Grace, it's good to see you again. We had a really productive conversation a little while back, and I love to see that you're still going after constantly improving and growing as a journalist. I think it's going to depend on where you're applying. If you're applying to certain stations that have a certain brand, you're going to do better to have a reel that shows that you're in line with what their expectations are. So I would be less concerned about a wide variety in those situations. I would also encourage you to really think outside the box with the tools you have. At your school, are there different things that you can take charge of in creating new ways to present information so that you can create your own opportunities with our cell phones? And I think we talked about this before. I mean, cell phones give us such a cool opportunity to create really high quality content that can be used on that first reel. And so, I would find ways to vary what you're doing while staying on brand with the type of job that you're going to be applying for.
Thank you. So consistency over variety in terms of what I'm looking for, which is to eventually be an anchor for a certain. Sounds good.
I think whatever the job you're trying to get, your reel should really speak to that and be all in on it. If you're trying to get a news job, and I'm seeing a lot of stuff that's sports or a lot of things that are super featurey, I'm going to question how much news experience you have. I think the smaller the market, the more forgiving they are on those sorts of things. But mostly you want to showcase that you're a professional who can do the job. And so whatever that looks like, whether that's variety or consistency, I think that you and your mentors can come up with a good plan.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grace. Hey, Mike, you had your hand up. Is there something you wanted to?
Yeah, I just wanted to expand on what Ashley had just mentioned. I think it's really important. And I know we talked about this in the beginning, but there is no magic ticket to the perfect reel because everybody has slightly different goals for what they're looking for. As I mentioned earlier, our teams are really looking for that storytelling aspect. But I think that as long as you put stories on there that are true to you and give anybody who looks at that a really good sense of who you are as a journalist, I think that's going to help. And for us, I tend to appreciate whether it's in the initial email. By the way, as we were talking about, we have 9 people on our recruitment team. I will tell you, if you talk to all 9 of them, we love to get outreach. When somebody emails us and says, hey, I saw a job you have in Los Angeles, let's talk about it. I appreciate that. I appreciate the aggressiveness. I appreciate the fact that you took the time to talk to us and really reach out and figure out what Spectrum News is all about. But in general, if you took the time to do that and then tailored your reel, even just a little bit to what we may be looking for, I think you're going to rise to the top and that as well. But as long as you come across as a journalist in that reel, I think that's the best you can do, because everybody on this call, all the news directors here, all the recruiters, we all have slightly different perspectives on what we're looking for and what makes that reel a reel. Like for me, I hate slates that are longer than 5 seconds. Like I want to see your name and your email address and maybe your LinkedIn profile, and then I want to get to the content right away. That's me personally. I know other folks on our team don't mind a 10 or 15 second slate. So you just have to be okay with the fact that this is a very subjective thing that we're talking about, and you can only be true to yourself. And I think that'll help. That will help sell you to anybody you're trying to.
Terrific advice. Terrific advice. I want to, we've got an hour here. It's time, I think, that we got to start talking about some content and reels. When I look at reels, I see 2 things. I see the content and I see the structure. And sometimes young journalists gets way too consumed with the structure. How long should this stand up be? When should I rule into my package? How long should a package be? And they forget about the most important part, and that's the content. And as Mike pointed out, being themselves. Okay, so that comment made, one of the things we've neglected in a couple of our Zoom meetings have been meteorologists and Mets. And Dylan put it out here really early because we didn't get to it the last time. I'd love for the recruiters and the news directors to talk about putting together a Met reel and how it's different from another reel, if it's different than another reel. Mike, you're up. You're on my screen right now, so. And I know you're looking for Mets. Yeah.
We're always looking, and I'll just share this interesting story with you. So we just hired, we had 2 meteorologist openings in our New York City station, New York 1. That particular station has a very long, strong legacy in the market. So we were looking for folks for those roles that have some New York City connections. That's not necessarily the case if we're hiring in Milwaukee or we're hiring in Asheville, North Carolina, or wherever it may be. I think that you really have to, again, it pays as a journalist, as Jessica mentioned earlier, as a journalist, do your research on what you're applying for and what type of job you're applying for and where you're going to be. For example, if you're applying as a meteorologist at one of our station in Tampa, our station in Orlando, you really want to make sure that if you have that severe weather, you have that hurricane background, you have that type of kind of credentials, make sure you play that up, because obviously that's going to fly really well with the news directors that are going to be looking at that. They're going to be dealing with it versus maybe one of our station in Kansas City, maybe really looking for someone that's got some tornado coverage and they can showcase that as well. So again, I think it all goes back to really making sure that you understand where you're applying, what the station is looking for, and then try to show to anybody who's looking at that you are the right person for that job. And again, I think it shows that initiative that you really thought about it. I also think, and hopefully you guys will all agree, the days of mass sending out the same reel, the same cover letter, the same email to everybody are long, long gone. I think that is lazy and easy, and none of us are looking for lazy or easy.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hey, Stephanie, how about you on the Met reel? I saw you replied to Dylan in the chat. What is your thoughts on meteorologists?
Yes, I know Dylan. Hi, Dylan. It's good to have you here. So I think a Met reel is really no different than any other reel. You need to stand out. And I think please don't make yourself look goofy. Don't make yourself like, it's not all about, being the funny guy or gal out there, and sort of lightening the mood on a regular basis and a lot of happy talk. I want to know that you've got personality, but I don't need 10 clips that you've got personality. I need 1 or 2 max. And I think it comes down to, and it's something that I wrote in the chat. I've just been sort of putting comments in the chat as we're going. I think it comes down to this. Your reel is sort of like your package. It's about telling your story. You have a shot now to tell your story to a recruiter, to a news director, to a newsroom. Don't blow it. Don't overdo it. Don't make me pick what your best stuff is. Give me one minute to 1:30 max of your best stuff. I don't want to look at 3 minutes and then have to say to a news director I speak with, skip all the way over to 2:20. That's the best part. That's annoying. I don't want to have to do that. Put your best stuff up front. But please remember, it's like a package. Don't be repetitive. I need 1 or 2 that feature stand-ups, 1 or 2 hard news stand-ups, 1 or 2 creative stand-ups that maybe use graphics. Don't be repetitive with your package types. I want to see that you're a storyteller, and I want to see that you can tell a feature story, you can tell a breaking news story, you can tell a hard news story, you can tell an issues story, you can tell a weather story, right? Just because you're a meteorologist doesn't mean that you're not telling a story every day. You are. You're telling the weather story of that day. Show that on your reel. Have the exact same things apply from a reel from, say, MMJ, a reporter, an anchor, a sports anchor. The same applies to your reel as a Met.
Perfect. Perfect. And I just saw something pop up in the chat from Angela about sports. And I'm assuming that you're going to have the same advice, right? Like it's going to be about character development. It's not necessarily about the score. It's about what happened during the score and how it impacted and something new that you learned about those that just scored.
Exactly. I'm not looking for, please don't put on your reel cliches. I know you can probably do a stand-up holding a puppy or a kitten. I know if you're a sports person that you're probably at some time going to have a crowd behind you and you're going to get them riled up and they're going to scream so that it's really loud. I get that. And I know you can probably do that. Don't use that on your reel. That's not your best stuff. It's a cliche. Everybody uses that on their reel. Instead, on your reel, teach me something new. Show me something I've never seen before. Stand out with your talent, with your creativity, with your ability to tell your story the best way.
Thank you. Let's talk about producers now. Steph, you're on my screen. Give me a 1 minute. What's your 1 minute advice to producers in terms of reels?
Producers need to show that they understand you need to grab attention and you need to grab it quickly. You need to tell people this is why you need to watch. You need to use graphics. You need to use the most interesting ways of doing things. If you don't, you're going to lose your audience. And you want to grab the attention of the recruiter, of the news director right away, of the executive producer, right? They want to see that you can do something different that's going to make people sit up and go, oh, well, I didn't know that that meant this. That's interesting. And they're going to stick around to see what the story is. So you need to show you can sort of, what in my newsroom, we always called up produce it, right? Have breakout elements, show that this isn't just the regular story that you're going to see. Ask your MMJs, your reporters, your anchors, what is the best video? What is the best sound? I need to feature your story in the best way. So to get a great reel as a producer, you need to have great relationships with the newsroom and with everybody that's in the field on the set, because that's going to help you get the best reel possible. In addition to that, I don't want to see 5 packages in a row. Give me some pacers, give me some VOs, some VOSOTs. 5 packages in a row is going to bore me. I know they do it really well with nightly news. They're great at that, but that's nightly news. They get to do that.
Yep. And as Martha Jennings said, you know, she wanted to see action, right? She said, if the first 2 stand-ups, you're just standing up and there's no action, you're not talking and moving, or there's no action in the shots, she just shuts it down right then.
Well, it's not engaging, and you're not engaging
Right.
your audience. You're not being creative, and you're not using your backgrounds or the story itself to pull viewers in.
And let me weigh in on YouTube analytics. Folks, if you're putting your reels out on YouTube, you need to be looking at your analytics. I'll tell you, I look at all the analytics on reels that you're posting on my site, and our drop rate is 80% within the first 90 seconds of your reel. It means 80% of your audience is gone in the first minute and a half. You need to know that point. You can see that on YouTube when people are dropping. And that doesn't mean that means whatever they just saw was enough and they turned you off. That's a great cue to go back and rework your reel. So use those analytics. I want the news directors to weigh in a little bit on this now. Aaron, are you still with us, Aaron? Unmute yourself if you're out there.
I'm here.
Perfect. So what do you look for in a producer reel, Aaron?
Well, it's been so long since I've received a producer reel. What I look for is, I mean, pretty much what Stephanie was saying, but it's hard for producers when they put the reel out. They want to take the best segments of their best shows, right, and they put it out there. What I look for is the most recent newscast, what they've done most recently, to see how they produced up the newscast, to see how they started the newscast with their headlines, whether it's sound, whether it's camera movement, whether they're moving their anchors around the set, whether it's just the same, thing day after day, what they repeat themselves from newscast to newscast. It's you want to make sure that you're not boring the audience. So You know, our basic rule here is like you want to be changing your shot like every 5 to 7 seconds, whether it's video or it's on camera. So if you're producing a newscast, you don't want a long shot of some boring piece of video in your headlines. You don't want to sit on your camera, on your anchors on a 2-shot for 20 seconds while they read the intro. You want to have camera movement. You want to zoom into the shot. You want to use graphics. You want to move them around the studio. That's what I look for, is how creative can they get. I don't necessarily look for maybe if the director didn't take the shot quick enough or mispunch something, because I understand sometimes that's out of control. I look at what they're trying to do and the effort they're putting in to make their newscast stand out and be different each day. Now, when I look for producers on YouTube, a lot of times I'm looking, you know, I'm a starter market. So I'm looking at colleges. I'm looking at people who might be in their junior year or last semester, their senior year, and they're putting on pretty good newscasts. And I look and see how creative they can be using their set and their reporters and their video. That's what I look for in producers. I came up as a producer, and it's very hard for me when somebody sends me the reel. I don't know how much of it is their actual work, right? It's like, did you do this yourself or did somebody else do this? So that's when I look, that's what I look for. And then when I talk to them on the phone or email them, if they answer my emails, because a lot of times I get ghosted. I asked them, I said, what was your thinking behind this? Why did you do it this way? What about this? Do you ever think about trying it this way? That's kind of what I do. The same thing with reporters, though. I look and see how they stand out and set the reels apart instead of just kind of standing here or doing the same shots over and over again. It's the creativity that I look for.
Perfect. Dana, how about you? You want to weigh in on that?
Sure, and thank you. And once again, I want to start with a side note. Please all remember how small the world is. You need to be a good newsroom citizen. 24 years ago, Stephanie Gorin tossed to me on my first ever live shot in Plattsburgh, New York. And now here we are, right? What are the chances? The people you know now, go to school with now, work with now, will be in your life one way or the other for a very long time. Be a good newsroom citizen. And hello, Stephanie, lovely to see you. So about producer reels. Aaron made a very good point about not sending your best show. He said, send a recent show. I would take it even a half inch further. Send me last night's show. And in your cover letter, tell me why you loved it and what piece or part of it you wish you had a second shot at. I produced for 8 years, from Columbus, Ohio to Boston, Massachusetts. I had good shows, I had bad shows. But to understand what the difference is, and for you to be able to own that and explain that, tells me much more than here's the best show that I did that happens to be 4 months ago. So own last night's show and send it to me. I would suggest, in addition, think about cold opens, think about strong teases, interesting blocking, and pre-produced graphics that are of high value to your viewer.
Man, that is dynamite advice, Dana. Thank you so much. Hey, Jess, how about you weighing in on this? Jessica.
I was just talking with the mute button on like a person who's never been on Zoom before. I was actually just responding to MT in the chat as well about choosing not to have just one straight reel as a producer, but posting a lot of different options for a person on their I think YouTube channel. And so whether it's that or whether it's coming up with a producer reel, I would say one of the things that a person is looking for, kind of like what Dana was saying, is if you don't know what your best stuff is, how am I going to have the time to look at everything that you're offering to me to look at, but also how are you going to choose what the best way, or in your opinion, what the best way is to present a certain story, how to produce something up, how to put a show together, what story should go in your show, if you can't look at your work and decide what your best work is. So maybe focus on that for a little while. Think about what all your, to answer you directly, MT, think about what all your different stuff is on there, and certainly leave that on your YouTube page for anybody who might, have the time and go peruse around, but definitely have something specific for a reel or for, what people are looking for, unless it is, like everybody else has been saying, just sending in last night's show and being able to say, this is this is just last night's show. It's not necessarily my best work, but it is an everyday show. This is what I loved. This is what I wish I could have done differently. And maybe even, I hate a bunch of excuses, but maybe even explaining something like, yeah, I really wanted to do this and we rehearsed everything, but then somebody sneezed and hit the wrong button. So that's why that one thing that you saw that you probably thought, gosh, why would they do that? That's why that happened. So I'm also a producer, produced for 8 years from Billings, Montana to Tucson, Arizona to Sacramento, California. Hi, Luke at ABC 10. And we don't know each other, but again, this is a small business and I work there. That is something that I learned everywhere, right? Is that first of all, it's different anywhere that you go, what someone is looking for. So talking to your EP or whoever it is who's directly supervising you for what is best for the team, what is best for your brand or your specific story, show and station and goals. Always listen to the research. Well, really listen to your news director, but if your news director is telling you things from the research, listen to the research. And then those are the things that will help guide you. And maybe that's what you need MT specifically to say, you know, in a certain sense, this was some of my best work, but you know, that was really focused on this particular brand of the station that I was working at the time. Your station that I'm applying to now has a different brand. So here are some things that I did over my time there that maybe would appeal more to what you might be looking for as my community station or whatever the different brand might be.
Nice. And hey, Mike's got his hand up, and then Ashley, I want to come to you. I'm gonna prep you for this. You've got an open reporter fill-in anchor role. How does somebody make a reel for that? And I'm going to come to you after Mike weighs in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I think if you hear all of us talking, you're probably picking up on a theme that even if you send in your producer, we may ask for your most recent show. I can tell you our team, if you apply for an MMJ job with us, I'm going to look at your reel. And if I like your reel, I'm going to go onto your station site and see if I can find just a run of the mill day of, because you're telling us in your reel, this is the best I have to offer. I want to kind of see what it's like on a Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Like that's kind of what we look for. So whether you're a producer or a med or really anything, it's always good to just be, I know it kind of goes without saying that you always want to put your best work out there as much as you can every day. But especially when you're putting yourself out there, just know that there could be people, you know, scoping out your website, your station's website, looking for your work at any time. So you really want to make sure, especially when you're out on the market, that everything that you do every day is just do it as such as a news director or recruiter is watching, because they probably will in some way, shape, or form. That's all, Mike.
Yep. Great advice. Hey, so Ashley, I gave you like a minute to think about that. So hang on a second. Sean Robertson has a question that I hope that we can take offline, and hopefully one of the news directors or recruiters can answer Sean's question about a sports play-by-play reel. So, you know, pretty specific. If one of the advisors panelists can respond to Sean directly, that would be awesome. So Ashley, I'm coming back to you, because this is a question I get all the time is, do I build an anchor and a reporter reel? Do I build an anchor reporter reel? How do I apply for the reporter fill-in anchor role with the right reel?
It's a really good question. Within CMG, I would say reporting is your most important thing. Showcase that reporting front and center. But I think back to what Stephanie mentioned at the beginning of this call with like a YouTube page. You know, you have so much ability to build things out in a variety of ways. If I'm looking at a reporter / fill-in anchor, I want to make sure that you are serious about that reporter piece. The fill-in anchor is not going to be a primary go-to responsibility out of the gate. So really, I'm looking for those reporter skills and interest. And then when we're talking about anchoring, which may be a little bit lower down on your montage or at the back end of your reel, you know, can you read a teleprompter without sounding like you're reading? How do you handle breaking news at the desk? What sorts of situations have you been in where you're walking and talking, interacting with a co-anchor? Those are very important skills that we're going to look at. But primarily, even for our full-time anchor jobs, we want to see that you can report, that you can ask questions, that you can think on your feet. And that is what should be front and center of any reel.
Yep. And guess what? So we had Lori Orlando, Senior Vice President talent strategy at CBS News, probably one of the premier news organizations in the world. And she said that every good anchor was a good reporter first. And that's exactly how you answered the question, I think, Ashley, is the reporting chops are what's really going to get you that job in that particular case.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. We see, like, we could go on forever about Reels, right? I want to get to kind of interviews. Forget about resumes. That'll be a different day. We'll tackle. Let's talk about interviews. Stephanie, weigh in. You probably interview more than anybody here. I mean, you interview everybody I send to you. So, and that's about 100 a day, it seems like sometimes. What are the do's and don'ts? What are your top three, Steph?
Okay, so my top three in this case are relatively simple, but so critically important. The first thing is do your research, know about the station, know about what they're covering that day, know the competition, know the market. Don't get on a call and not have any idea what the company is that you're talking with. If you're talking about Scripps with me, know about Scripps. If you're talking about Cox with Ashley, you should know about Cox. Do not get on that call unless you absolutely know that you've done your research. It shows and it matters. You're supposed to be a journalist. So show that you're a journalist. So that's the first thing. It's critical and yet so simple. The second thing is that be ready for those obvious questions because they're going to come, right? I want to know what you think your top three skills are. I want to know what you have to get better at. I want to know why do you love doing this? What is it that drives you? And use all of those questions as a way to continue to sell yourself. Don't look at a question as, oh, that's so basic. That question is an open door. It gives you a chance to really sell yourself. The third thing, and this is really important, is to be concise. Know what you want to say it, and stop. Here's a great tip for how to know if you've gone on too long. If the person you're talking to has stopped typing, you need to stop talking. If they have stopped taking notes, stop your answer. It's done, it's over. You have lost their attention. So make sure that you are being concise and using your words in a really strong way to show who you are, sell yourself, and get the point across that you are in this for the journalism. That's what's going to make us stand up, take notice, and want to move you forward in the process.
That's beautiful advice, and I've coached to that for 20 years. To be absolutely honest, we can think of threes in an interview. You answer questions, situation, action, result. And when I'm coaching interviewing, I get a stopwatch, you get 2 minutes. And you've got to go through a situation, the action you took, and the result, 2 minutes. You're going to get 10 questions in an interview. That's 20 minutes right there, right? And you still haven't asked the interviewer a question yet. So great advice, Stephanie, that concise situation, action, result. Perfect. Any one of the other recruiters want to weigh in? How about Dana or Aaron or Jess?
Yeah. Oh, Dana, I don't know if you're trying to, we don't hear you, or at least I don't.
Go ahead, Jess.
Oh, okay. I'll sorry, Dana, I'll jump you in line here. So the only thing that I would add to Stephanie's is, again, what I was saying before, you're applying to be a journalist, right? So if I ask you, what are your questions for me? And you don't have any, or you're being very complimentary, that's very nice of you to say, wow, you've done such a good job of talking about the position that you've answered all my questions. That's not possible. That's not possible. And it will happen in an interview if you get the job and you're interviewing someone as a journalist. So always be able to think of, if it does happen, right? Maybe I really did answer all your questions. Be able to think of questions on the fly. That's one of the things that's actually part of my test for you in the interview is, can you think up questions on the fly if I have answered all of your questions? So always, always, always be that curious person who, that's what we're looking for in our journalists anyway, whether it's the anchor who should be the best journalist in the room, as Stephanie was saying, or anyone, even folks who are just starting out, that is going to be something that you're going to have to do every day, is ask questions. So if you don't have any, I don't have faith that you can do that. Dana, over to you.
Perfect.
Did I get my audio back? Can you hear me? Okay, so I taught for 24 years, and I taught my students that a good soundbite is clear, complete, concise, pertinent, powerful, passionate, adds authority, credibility, impact, and dimension. So those are 10 variables. Every answer you give in an interview should also be those 10 things.
Okay, now you gotta type the 10 things over in the chat, Dana.
I'll put them in the chat, and I would add quickly, have and demonstrate that you believe in a news philosophy. What do you think news is? How do you get it? And then convince me you're an expert in one area, i.e. the beat system. If I come to work for you, I want to be your transportation beat reporter. Anything with wheels that goes from point A to point B is my story. And convince me that that's so.
Yep. And Shari Berg was on Talent Boulevard Zoom 3, and she's the COO of Fox News Stations, if you don't know Shari's name. She said a guy came to her and was everything about aviation. And at the end of that, guess what? She hired him. His name's Jason Frazier. He's on Fox Weather, and he talks about everything aviation. So what a great illustration, Dana. Thank you. Mike or Aaron, you want to weigh in at all on interview, do's and don'ts? You get 1 minute here.
Sure.
1 minute, student. Oh, there you go. Go ahead.
Here I am. Sorry. No, absolutely. I think that to echo what everyone else is saying, it is the most frustrating thing when you talk to somebody and it's obvious they have not spent any time really figuring out what your company is all about, what the position specifically is. And I think it's imperative, no matter if you're entry level or you're looking for jobs in our stations in New York or LA or wherever they are, you've just got to be ready. I think that anybody at any level just expects that. And if you don't show that recruiter or that news director that you even want to spend just a few minutes beforehand, just figuring out who you're talking to and why you want to work for this company, then it's going to go pretty poorly pretty quickly. I think that's my biggest pet peeve. I just had one actually a little earlier today where it was blatantly obvious to me that the person I was talking to didn't know if I was talking to me or to Scripps or to Cox or wherever it was. And it's just such a turnoff, and it's hard to get over that as a recruiter because you want that person to be engaged with you and you want that person to be engaged with your company. I don't expect anybody to know my background or what I've done previously, but I do expect you to know a little bit about this organization and what we're all about. That's all.
Do your homework, right, brother?
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I interview people, it's mainly I'm reaching out to them because I get few to none applications. We're small market. We have our ads posted everywhere, but everybody's looking for a bigger market. So I reach out to people. I set up the interview, and usually I'll ask them, if they've done any research and looked into our city, our market, our company. And if they say no, at that point I'm kind of like, okay, this, I'll continue the interview, but at that point I'm just kind of okay writing them off. But most of the time, my interviews consist of like the first 10 minutes. I'm just talking to the person. I'm not asking questions about, why they got into journalism or what's important. I'm just talking about their life, how they grew up, what's important to them, what do they like. Sometimes, we have a connection through, whether it's like the sports in New York or food or something. We'll just talk. And then from there, we get into it. I'll ask them why they got into journalism. What do they like about it? What's most important to them? And then, if they have any questions, just shoot them out at me. Don't wait till I'm done. You can interrupt me. You can, raise your hand. You can wait till I'm finished, whatever it is. And I mainly look for people who are smart and intelligent and have an ability to be a good journalist. We can teach everything here. We can teach you how to write, how to edit, how to shoot, and we do that for a lot of our reporters and producers. The hardest thing is to tell how passionate or dedicated or hardworking they are, because anybody can put on a front. So that's where most of my time is spent, is talking to them to see how dedicated they are to being a reporter, or if they just want to be on TV or an influencer, or if they're really interested in coming to Market 133 out, Northern California. And that's what it is. I don't get a whole lot of applications, so it's not like they're replying to me and they've done the research. I reach out to them and then I ask them if they've done anything after that. So that's just my process. It's different for everyone.
And the principles of your process are dead on. And by the way, I have worked in Chico, California. It's a great place to be.
It is.
So,
it really is.
And I would come work for you, Aaron.
I can't. No, I can't afford you, Mike.
You wouldn't hire me, trust me. So we've come up on an hour. Thank you very much to our panelists. I mean, think about, for friends that are on this, I mean, think about the companies that are represented here. Cox, I've worked for Cox, high employee engagement. I love the company. Scripps, Spectrum, Tegna, Gray. I mean, we've got some thoroughbreds of companies here, friends. And, thank you for giving us our time today and sharing it with this group of 50 or 60 people that have passed through this door today. There will be a 6th Zoom meeting in January. Topic will be announced in a couple of weeks. We're trying to work on that. So everyone's invited back. Please join us at TalentBlvd.com and support the platform, support the recruiters and the news directors that took time today to be here. So thank you all so much. This is being recorded. You'll get a link. Thank you, Joyce Cortez, for managing, and we'll see you in 2 months, folks. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.